Welcome to Kevin Deal Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, we are going to talk about Canon's decision to prohibit other companies from making lenses that utilize the RF mount. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, I do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and I dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. So on today's episode, we are beating a dead horse. You can beat whatever you want. It can be a dead horse, it can be a dead tiger, dead beluga. I don't care. The internet won't shut up about this, and I'll probably get a bunch of down votes for this because I'm now weighing in with my opinion. But if you're sticking around, I guess you care what I think, which thank you, by the way. I believe in free market capitalism, true free market capitalism. Canon as a company can do whatever they want. They spent the money on the research and development. They can prohibit people from licensing out their technologies. That's their right as a company. My personal opinion, my philosophical opinion, though, is that I do think that Canon is making a bit of a mistake and maybe it's a bit of an overreach. I saw that Nikon just got on board with allowing Tamron to make a lens for them. I know Canon has told companies like Samyang and Viltrox to stop making lenses in the RF mount. Now, I have seen that maybe this is licensed versus unlicensed, so maybe that opens up the door to Sigma and Tamron getting in on it. Now, all of you who've watched this channel know that I'm not a fanboy and that I won't be an apologist for any camera company. So I'm going to take this time to go on a mini rant about something that drives me crazy about Canon. The 35mm L lens, where is it? The 135 L lens, where is it? A 200 f2 L lens, where is it? Something that's ultra wide, something like an 11 to 24 f4. Where is it? I understand in the EF mount that these lenses were really great classic lenses and they're tough acts to follow. If I were to have launched the RF system, I wouldn't have done it without a 35mm prime that's an L lens to begin with, because that is a very common focal length. And you apologists out there cannot blame COVID for this, because the RF mount was launched in 2018, 2 years prior to COVID. This is absolutely something that falls squarely on the shoulders of Canon. And like I said, I'm not an apologist for brands, and there really is no excuse at this point, 4 years in, for Canon to not have a 35 prime lens. And if they're not going to step in and make these lenses, I'd love to see third-party companies do it instead. Speaking of third-party companies, they fill needs that Canon won't fill. They make unique focal lengths that are popular in wildlife and astrophotography, and for whatever reason, Canon will not address these focal lengths, so let these other companies address them instead. My personal philosophy on this is that I think that it would, in the long term, benefit Canon, because there are people out there who are interested in features of maybe an R5 or an R6, but man, they can't also spend $3,000 on a really good premium RF lens. So Canon may be throwing away business for body sales. There are people out there who maybe just need the Canon body but don't need the Canon lens. Take the Sigma 18-35 1.8 for instance. On the EF mount, this thing was a staple. If Canon would just let Sigma make an RFS version of this lens, they would see their newly launched R7 and R10 increase in sales. Canon doesn't make a lens that matches these specs, so let Sigma do it instead. I'd also argue that with Canon getting into the APS-C market, now they've wandered into a world where their clients' needs are more diverse with lens choices. This opens up the door for third-party manufacturers to join the party. I shoot on the Fuji X mount, and as you can see right here, I have a Sigma lens. Because Fuji is not my primary system for my commercial work, I shoot Fuji for fun. I use it for street photography. So I didn't see the need to go out and spend the top dollar on the premium Fuji lenses. Instead, I bought the Sigma lenses, but Fuji still got my money. They still got my money for this XS10 purchase, so why wouldn't the same be true for Canon? Maybe somebody out there wants to buy an R7, an R10, an R5, an R6, but maybe they don't want to drop $3,000 on a 28-70. Maybe they don't want to drop $2,000 on a 50mm 1.2. If Sigma were to offer the same thing for, say, $899, Canon could then get those body sales, and that would help them out as a company. I think there's an opportunity there for Canon to make money by opening up their lens mount to other companies. One thing I don't think Canon is thinking about here is that a lot of photographers have to hit milestones, stepping stones when it comes to their gear because they can't afford everything all at once. So you have to spend more maybe on a body and then use a lesser lens until you make a little bit of money and then go out and buy a lens. Depending on your situation, that may be the way you go. I tend to favor lenses over camera bodies, but it all depends on what you do, and there's no right answer for everybody. I own an RF 51.2 right now, but that wasn't always the case. Before that, I owned a Sigma Art 51.4, which was a great lens, and I used it adapted. But here's the problem with using the lenses adapted. They weren't really designed to work with each other. Canon didn't go out and find all the third-party EF mount lenses when they made these EF to RF adapters, and so as you can probably see in the Canon forums, that people who are using like Sigma and Tamron lenses will run into these errors every now and then where things won't communicate. And that makes sense because they weren't designed to work with each other in the first place. In my case, Canon got an R5 sale in the beginning. And eventually they still got that RF 51.2 sale, but I had to use the Sigma lens as a stepping stone. Maybe you're the person who's happy with the Sigma 1.4 lens. That's your peak. That's as good of a 50mm as you want. And that should be good enough for Canon because they still got that R5 sale in the end. I think Canon eventually will open it up. I think they're just holding on and squeezing every last dollar out that they can. Now, if that pisses you off, you have the right to leave the platform. I hear people all the time go, I'm going to leave Canon and go to Sony. Then do it. I can definitely see the frustration of a lot of you. There is absolutely a market segment that Canon is failing to capture by not opening up to third parties. That is just my opinion. But I also hold the opinion that it is their right to do what they want to with their technology that they spent all that money researching and developing. So in summary, do I hope to see Canon let third-party companies develop their lenses? Absolutely, I do. However, with one caveat, I think it should be licensed. And the reason why I think it should be licensed is because these companies are reverse engineering, and I don't necessarily think that a lot of them are doing as good of a job as that they could do. I think what's best for the consumer is cooperation between the third-party company and Canon. So on one hand, yes, Canon, I think, is being a little stubborn, and they are shooting themselves in the foot here. However, I think that the companies who have said, screw it, we're going to go ahead and just make lenses in the RF mount anyway and just reverse engineer it, I think Canon has every right to send them legal paperwork and say, hey, we didn't give you permission to do this. If I had invented a technology, I would want control over how it is implemented out in the real world. I was originally resistant in dipping my toes into these waters. There's a billion videos on YouTube addressing this very subject. However, add my voice to the growing chorus of people demanding that Canon allow third-party manufacturers to develop RF lenses. I feel it's the best thing for the consumer, therefore it's the best thing for Canon. So anyway, that's my opinion that you didn't ask for. I apologize to the horse that I beat the hell out of. But I guess if you stuck around this long through the video, you do care about my opinion. And if you like what you saw, tell me in the comments below. And obviously, if you love my channel, I would humbly ask you, click the subscribe button below. Your support means a lot to me. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye.